Greetings, dear viewers, and welcome to our channel. Today, we embark on a journey through time, back to the turbulent 11th century, to explore one of the events that shaped world history, the First Crusade. This was not merely a military conflict, but a complex symphony of faith, ambition, politics, and survival, where the highest ideals collided with humanity's most primal instincts. At that time, the world map was a vibrant yet chaotic tapestry. In the West, Europe was emerging from the Dark Ages, with feudal kingdoms consolidating power and the Roman Catholic Church increasingly asserting its central role. In the East, the mighty Byzantine Empire, heir to ancient Rome, faced growing pressure from emerging Islamic forces, particularly the Seljuk Turks. At the heart of it all was Jerusalem, a holy city for three major religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, a flashpoint for conflict. Our goal in the next 30 minutes is to unravel the deeper forces that ignited this crusade, trace the footsteps of its participants, from humble peasants to noble knights, and evaluate the profound consequences it left behind, not only for those directly involved, but for the entire course of history in both East and West. Let us begin this journey of discovery. The story of the First Crusade cannot begin without mentioning an urgent plea from the East. By the late 11th century, the Byzantine Empire, once a formidable bastion of Eastern Christianity, faced a grave threat from the Seljuk Turks. After the catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, the Byzantines lost much of Anatolia, their breadbasket and source of manpower. Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, a skilled and pragmatic leader, realized he needed Western aid to protect his empire. He sent envoys to Pope Urban II, not to call for a grand holy war, but to request military assistance in the form of mercenaries to counter the Turks. Alexios's plea reached Pope Urban II at a pivotal historical moment. Urban II, an ambitious reformer, saw in this call a golden opportunity to strengthen the Roman Catholic Church's authority, mend the schism between Eastern and Western Christianity after the Great Schism of 1054, and redirect the violent energies of Europe's nobility away from internal wars toward a common goal: liberating the Holy Land from Muslim control. In November 1095, at the Council of Clermont in France, Pope Urban II delivered a passionate speech, urging all Christians to take up arms and march to Jerusalem. The Pope's summons was not merely a military call. He skillfully wove together religious, political, and social elements. He promised complete forgiveness of sins for those who join this armed pilgrimage, a promise with immense appeal in a devout and guilt-ridden society. He also painted a picture of wealth and opportunity in the East, attracting those seeking fame, land, and riches. For many, this was a chance to escape hardship in Europe, to seek a better future, or simply to fulfill a sacred duty. The response from Western Europe was overwhelming, far exceeding expectations. From feudal knights in gleaming armor to impoverished peasants with crude tools, tens of thousands answered the Pope's call. They sewed crosses onto their cloaks, a symbol of their sacred vow, and began a perilous journey eastward. However, this enthusiasm came with a lack of organization and understanding, setting the stage for tragedies to come. While feudal leaders prepared for the official campaign, a spontaneous and chaotic movement erupted, the People's Crusade. Led by charismatic but militarily inexperienced figures like Peter the Hermit, a fervent preacher, and Walter Saint-Savoie, a poor knight, tens of thousands of peasants, the impoverished and the outcast armed themselves and set out. They believed their faith alone would overcome all challenges. However, their journey quickly turned disastrous. Lacking discipline, food, and leadership, these crowds caused havoc along the way. They looted towns and villages to survive, and tragically carried out brutal attacks on Jewish communities in Europe, believing the destruction of non-Christians was part of their holy mission. These acts left a dark stain on the Crusades' history. Upon reaching Anatolia, Seljuk Turk territory, their lack of preparation and experience was brutally exposed. Despite Emperor Alexios I's warnings, they ventured deep into enemy territory and were ambushed and massacred almost entirely by the better organized Seljuk army. The People's Crusade ended in tragedy, a stark warning of the dangers of blind zeal and unpreparedness. Yet it also demonstrated how deeply the call for a holy war had resonated in European society. In stark contrast to the chaos of the People's Crusade, the Princes Crusade was a far more organized effort, led by Europe's foremost nobles and knights. Each brought their own armies, driven by varied motives, but united by a single goal: to recapture Jerusalem. Among the most prominent leaders were Godfrey of Bouillon, a courageous duke from Lower Lorraine, Raymond IV of Toulouse, a wealthy and devout count from southern France, Bohemond of Taranto, an ambitious Norman prince, and his nephew Tancred, a young but talented knight. The Crusader armies marched through Europe, converging on Constantinople, the splendid capital of the Byzantine Empire. The relationship between the Crusader leaders and Emperor Alexios I Komnenos was complex. Alexios sought to reclaim lost territories from the Turks and required the Crusader leaders to swear loyalty to him and return any reconquered Byzantine lands. Despite tensions and mutual distrust, an agreement was reached, allowing the Crusaders to cross the Bosphorus and advance into Anatolia. The Crusaders' first victory came at Nicaea in 1097, the capital of the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum. After a prolonged siege, the city surrendered to the Byzantines, partly due to Alexios's diplomatic intervention. Soon after, the Crusaders faced a greater challenge at Dorylaeum, where they were ambushed by the Seljuks. In a fierce battle, the Crusaders showed resilience and ultimately triumphed, clearing the path for their arduous journey through Anatolia. The journey through Anatolia's arid and unforgiving terrain was a grueling ordeal. Lacking food and water, the Crusaders faced starvation, disease, and constant harassment from Seljuk forces. Thousands perished along the way, and the soldiers' morale was repeatedly tested. Yet they pressed southward, driven by their faith in their sacred mission and the hope of reaching Jerusalem. After their grueling journey through Anatolia, the Crusaders reached Antioch in October 1097. Antioch was not only a large and wealthy city, but also an ancient Christian center and a strategically vital stronghold controlling the road to Syria and Palestine. Capturing Antioch was essential before advancing to Jerusalem. However, the city was defended by formidable walls and a strong garrison, making the siege one of the Crusade's greatest challenges. The siege of Antioch lasted nearly 8 months, from October 1097 to June 1098, an extraordinarily grueling period for the Crusaders. Starvation ravaged the camp, disease spread rapidly, and morale plummeted. Many deserted, and even some leaders began to lose hope. Reinforcements from Europe were scarce, and the Crusaders frequently faced attacks from Muslim relief forces outside the city. At the height of desperation, an extraordinary event occurred. A monk named Peter Bartholomew claimed a vision revealing the location of the Holy Lance, the spear that pierced Jesus' side during the crucifixion. Though its authenticity was doubted, the discovery of the Holy Lance profoundly uplifted the Crusaders' spirits. Seen as a divine sign and promise of victory, it reinvigorated the exhausted soldiers. With renewed morale and faith, the Crusaders launched a bold attack on the Muslim relief forces, besieging them from outside. In a decisive battle, led skillfully by Bohemond of Taranto, the Crusaders achieved a resounding victory. The Muslim forces were routed, and Antioch finally fell into Crusader hands. This was a great triumph, but it also sparked disputes over control of the city, particularly between Bohemond and Raymond IV of Toulouse. After the victory at Antioch, the Crusaders faced internal divisions. Leaders vied for control of Antioch, and some wished to consolidate their position. However, pressure from soldiers and peasants who had endured immense hardship to reach the Holy Land forced the leaders to press on toward their ultimate goal, Jerusalem. In June 1099, after nearly 3 years of grueling travel, the Crusader remnants finally glimpsed Jerusalem's sacred walls. The siege of Jerusalem was the climax of the First Crusade. Though their numbers were greatly diminished, the Crusaders remained resolute. With aid from Genoese engineers and carpenters, they built massive siege towers and catapults. After days of fierce fighting and relentless effort, on July 15th, 1099, the Crusaders breached the city's walls and stormed inside. The capture of Jerusalem came with a bloody massacre. The Crusaders slaughtered much of the city's Muslim and Jewish population, an act of brutality that has sparked lasting historical controversy. For the Crusaders, this was the fulfillment of their sacred vow to liberate the Holy Land from non-Christians. For others, it was an indelible stain, a testament to the savagery that religious zeal can unleash. With Jerusalem's fall, the First Crusade ended, but its legacy was just beginning. To secure their hold on the Holy Land, the Crusaders established a series of Latin states in the Levant, including the Kingdom of Jerusalem, County of Edessa, Principality of Antioch, and County of Tripoli. Organized along European feudal lines, these states endured for nearly 2 centuries, serving as Christian outposts in the East. The First Crusade had profound effects on both Europe and the Middle East. It deepened the divide between the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church, already fractured by the Great Schism. It also reshaped Christian-Muslim relations, creating a long history of conflict and misunderstanding. Yet it also fostered cultural and commercial exchanges between the two worlds, introducing new ideas, technologies, and goods to Europe. The legacy of the First Crusade resonates to this day. It serves as a reminder of the power of faith, the complexity of human motives, and the unpredictable consequences of religious conflict. It left an indelible mark on history, shaping political, cultural, and religious boundaries of our world. And so, we have journeyed through one of humanity's most epic and tragic chapters, the First Crusade. From Pope Urban II's fervent call to arms, through the hardships of the journey, fierce battles, to the climactic capture of Jerusalem, and finally, the profound consequences it left behind. The First Crusade was not just a singular historical event. It is a mirror reflecting human aspirations, fears, and complexities. It reminds us of the power of faith, inspiring both the noblest actions and the most tragic atrocities. It also shows that even in the worst conflicts, there are valuable lessons about resilience, leadership, and the ceaseless interaction between civilizations. Thank you for joining us on this journey. See you in our next videos.